Welcome back to another episode of the Cosmic Business Breakthrough. I am really delighted to be welcoming an amazing astrologer to the show today. Georgina Sierra is someone that I met through our mentoring group with Sam Reynolds. She's a professional astrologer based in Sydney. And what I love about your story, Georgina, is that you are a scientist who is now an astrologer. So tell us about how that all came to be for you, and we're going to dive into the depths of Pluto shortly, which I'm really excited about. But tell us about your story, how you came into astrology and what the science degree and all of that has to do with it.
Well, firstly, thanks for having me on and inviting me. I'm so excited. Well, technically, I've been an astrologer since I was 11, but an amateur astrologer. So my late father would walk me to school. I was in primary school, and he always wanted to see his star sign prediction for the day. And now I'm showing my vintage here. The show Good Morning Australia with Bert Newton was on, and Karen Morgold, who's still active as an astrologer. She's gorgeous. And, he was like, no, I want to hear my star sign. He had to be a Capricorn, so we had to wait all the way through for Capricorn, and then we could go.
Of course.
From there, I was like, wait, hang on. So what am I? And I found out I was a Libra, and that's what was like the sparks. Now, I had strict yet very open-minded Greek parents, and they got me onto this path without me even knowing it. And a few years later, my mum got Linda Goodman's Star Signs, and she read it. It's one of the few books in English that she's read multiple times. And she said to me, you've got to read this. And when I read that book, my mind was just blown about other dimensions and all these things and how astrology goes into it, and then it was like that sparked something. It was like one astrology book after another. And then I got her sun signs. And the relationship one where you look up, and I was a teenager then, it's so pathetic. You like find out what that boy's star sign is and you look it up and see if they're compatible. But a lot of the time you're like, but that doesn't make sense. The relationship I'll have with this other sign as a Libra. So that's when I sort of got into it more and found out you've got to look at the whole chart and what have you. But I just stuck to the basics, like the sun signs. Anyway, trying to cut a long story short, I went into science, and I was working for a scientific organization, a government one, and I was known as one of the woo-woo scientists. So, and over our lunch breaks, everyone's like, so tell me more about Aries. Tell me more about Taurus. And I remember one guy saying, I'm an Aries, my wife's a Pisces, is it going to work?
Oh.
On the offset, I'm thinking, no. But, just from sun signs, I'd be like...
You can't judge it by the sun sign.
Exactly. Look at their Venus, look at their Juno, look at like the whole composite charts, their charts in synastry. And I would tell them, look, I need to see your charts. Don't have the time to do that. I didn't have exactly the training at the time to do it either.
Yeah.
So it always stuck with me. And then when my Pluto square Pluto transit happened, when it was exact, everything turned upside down.
Right.
I would say it went to, I don't want to swear, I won't look professional, but you can imagine, insert expletive.
Yes.
It was at a time where I was made redundant, my father passed away, everything just turned upside down.
Yeah.
But as my professional career went down the drain, my personal life started coming up. After a drought, I actually ended up finding my husband, and we're still together, all being well. And everything went really well from then on. And I remember thinking, when I'm on maternity leave, I'm going to start studying astrology. So I started buying all these books, but I was just too tired when I was pregnant. And you don't get enough time with a baby.
No.
So this was with my first pregnancy. And when was it? It was about 6 months after I gave birth. And I thought, why don't I start studying astrology? All I'm doing is taking care of my baby. I know it sounds horrible, but I just couldn't just sit on my laurels and just, do the mum thing, even though I love doing it. I just needed something else, extra stimulation. Yes. So I looked up, where I could start studying astrology, and Sydney Astrology School came up, and I got in touch with the lovely Mark Lawrenson. And he said, as it would have it, I'm starting level 1 tomorrow. You miss out on the early bird, but if you register now, you can start. And I did. And
Wow.
the rest is history. And that was with my Pluto square Pluto transit and with Neptune
Yeah.
as well. And I knew at the time something wasn't right. I wasn't
Mm.
exactly going crazy, even though I thought about it. I was going crazy. But
Yeah.
everything was changing. And it wasn't until I learned about transits, I was like, oh,
Mm.
okay, I get it. This is what's
Yeah.
happening, I'm in my midlife crisis. That's what a lot of people experience with
Yeah.
especially the Pluto square Pluto transit. So I guess that's the nutshell of how I got into it. But, the
Mm.
science cap is still there. It's not going
Mm.
anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that blend of, I love the story of how you got into it. I think it's so awesome that your dad loved reading or loved listening to um, his horoscope, and such a part of like the childhood experience, isn't it? And the fact that you're a scientist and also you kind of merge the science with your love of the stars and the planets. And we have to, we all often get this kind of label of woo woo, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about astrology, but ultimately it used to be a science. It used to be considered a science. And there
Mathematicians
is,
were astrologers.
yeah, and there is a lot of maths involved
Yeah.
in astrology, a lot more than I was expecting, no. And there's a lot of like understanding of the planets, the way the universe came to be. Like that's a part of what we do as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So today we're going to take a deep dive into Pluto, because this is one of the planets that you're particularly interested in because of this midlife transit that you went through that kind of changed everything, and you forged this new career path as an astrologer.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about the planet Pluto? What do we need to know to understand Pluto energy? And as my son always tells me, being a bit of a science geek, he's like, Pluto's not really a planet, Mum. Like, it's not a planet anymore. So tell us about that, from a scientific and an astrology perspective.
Well, Pluto, well, we have to go. Let's talk the science first. So Pluto was considered a planet, and now seeing in schools that they're not including it, just no. It's like, oh, yeah, old school. But my son was like going up to Neptune, and I'm like, and Pluto, and he goes, no. And I'm like, oh no, okay. I'll wait until you're a little bit older to explain. But I guess the reason why Pluto was demoted was because of how it rotates around the sun. It's not in the plane of the sun. So every other planet is going, in the same plane of rotation as the sun, but Pluto does his own thing. He does this huge ellipse and goes maybe 45 degrees. Don't quote me on that. But if you see, diagrams, he's really like, this is the sun, the plane, and he's going this way and he's going around. His orbit goes inside that of Neptune, which you don't really have much of that with the other planets. And you'd think, wouldn't they collide? But no, it only does it, Neptune goes around, 165 years to go around the sun, and Neptune takes 248. So by the time that happens, they never collide, thank goodness. But he does his own thing. So does Pluto in sort of an interpretive aspect in astrology. But to understand Pluto, we need to go back to Greek mythology to understand him. So he was known, or still known, as Hades or Avis. Now, if you tell a Greek Avi, they'll be like, what? Why? What's going on? It's the devil. Ah! But if you say Plutonas, they're like, oh yeah. And they're like, because Pluton means wealth. Or Plusio, like Plusius is someone who's rich. So he was known from ancient times as the giver of spiritual wealth. And that's what a Pluto transit is. He's also known as the creative destroyer. So I like to think of him as the builder who comes and buys your house that you've lived in since you were born, demolishes it right in front of your very eyes, and builds this beautiful complex and gives you the penthouse or the apartment that you were meant to have. That is absolutely
Right.
gorgeous. So, he was the god of the underworld.
Mm.
And to understand Pluto and what he does for you in your life, you really have to go there to the
Mm.
base of your chart, so to speak. You have to go deep inside and see
Mm.
what you really want to do with your life when you have
Yeah.
a Pluto aspect.
Mm.
You know that, I don't know if you've seen on Netflix the show Lucifer?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I
I love
have
that
seen
show.
Lucifer.
And he always says, I think it's sort of modeled on
Mm.
Pluto's story with Persephone as well.
Yeah.
But he always says, it's either to the red herring or whoever's done, the murder.
Mm.
What do you most truly desire? And when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that is so Pluto.
Mm.
Because that's what he
Yeah.
asks of you. He'll demolish everything,
Yeah.
and asks you, what do you want to do with your life? Because
Mm.
what you did before is not conducive to the person you're meant to be. So if you
Yes.
carry that with you, it's not gonna sustain you. Got to get rid of it, build yourself up
Right.
again, so you can move forward
Yeah.
to who you're meant to be. That's what Pluto
Yeah.
does. And he is scary, but if we see
Mm.
a Pluto transit, it's like seeing not so much an enemy, but a teacher
Mm.
or a force to be reckoned with, and going, right, face them head on, because if you don't face him head on, he will
Mm.
face you head on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And make you listen, I would say.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I think,
Mm.
I think, especially when you're learning astrology, there's kind of like this sense of Pluto as the big bad guy. Like,
The
oh, you don't want a
malefic.
Pluto. Yeah, you don't want a Pluto transit. I mean, after Saturn, like we all
Yeah.
obviously Saturn is the big bad guy. But, when it comes to the planet of death coming around, we get a little bit nervous, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's really interesting that there's this dual aspect to Pluto, kind of like you've touched on already, in that, yes, there's a demolishing that happens when Pluto comes along, because we think about, I guess, it's got that kind of decomposing idea or concept behind Pluto. Like, things have to decompose in order to be reborn again, like go back into the earth
Absolutely.
to regrow. So
Yeah.
there's that part of Pluto of like, let's demolish things, let's decompose things. But the other part of Pluto that is, what is it that you most desire? How is this happening? How is the wealth and the desire and the really big things in life, how are you making those things happen too?
Yeah.
I think there's that kind of duality to Pluto. It's like, on the one hand, it's destroying, and on the other hand, it's granting you these big opportunities or something, big gifts.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
so tell us about your own, like, your understanding of, oh, sorry, baby.
It'll make it more special. It's the mummy astrology special.
That's right. Um, a Pluto square Pluto transit. Tell us about what that means for us who are in like that midlife stage. Like,
Yeah.
tell us a bit about, how it comes to be, and then what happens at a Pluto square Pluto.
Well, I'm finding, I think from like, say, early mid 20th century till about the 1970s, if you were born around that time, you get Pluto coming at you first. For
Mm.
those born from around 1979, 1980, you're getting your midlife Pluto square Pluto transit and Neptune square Neptune right at the same time.
Like me. Yeah.
I feel sorry for you. My husband's getting that too.
Right.
He's at I'm trying to remember. His Pluto's like 2 degrees Scorpio. Yeah. And he's feeling it already. And he's like, with all these other things that are going on in life, he's like, I don't feel right. I'm really anxious. I think I'm losing my mind. And I'm like, hold it right there. You think you're losing your mind, You don't feel like yourself. Things are changing. You don't understand how everything on the surface is the same, but everything is inside. It's that spiritual aspect. He goes, yes. And I'm like, it's your midlife crisis. And he's like, come on. And I'm like, you're married to an astrologer. What else am I going to say? But it's true.
That's
You
it.
feel like you're going nuts. And
Mm,
clients that I see specifically for their midlife transits, the first thing they'll
mm.
say to me is, I feel like I'm going nuts. I always ask them, how's life for you going right now? I'm going nuts. I'm losing it. Do I need to go see a psychiatrist? And I'm like, no. Well, we don't know. I mean, you can tell if someone's going to, needs to see someone and you refer to them, go see a healthcare professional. But the majority of them, 99.999% of them, no, they're not losing their mind. But things are changing. They're starting to see things differently. It's a big turning point because it starts setting you up for the next transits that you're going to have in the middle of your life, like the Neptune, square Neptune, and Uranus opposition. So you're looking at Pluto starting a good maybe 6 to 8 year transition from the first half of your life to the second half of your life. It is a really big transit, and the only thing you could really do is take one day at a time and meditate on it, and you'll see, as I said, he's the giver of spiritual wealth. He's teaching you something really deep down, and depending on the houses where it's to be your true authentic self. It doesn't cut it anymore. And I remember ladies being in their 50s where I used to work, and we went to a lunch. And they're like, oh, once you hit your 40s, you don't care anymore. You say it as it is. You know who you are. And I'm like, oh, when I was about, in my late 20s, and I'm like, can I do that? And they're like, no, you have to go through the 30s. But I didn't know what that was. And that's what it is. You finally know who you are. And you know what? When you get to the other side of it, you will see that you are so much better than what you were before.
And you'll only have this transit, this square aspect where, Pluto is square, the place that you have it in your birth chart, for this one period in your life. You're not going to experience it again.
No, it'll never come back. Yeah.
It's a once only transit, and it happens at around this kind of late 30s, early 40s stage.
Yeah.
In this current generation. So it is something that I'm about to go through myself. You may, however, experience Pluto square your moons, or conjunct your moon, or conjunct your sun, or other things. And if you have, a lot of Capricorn energy, you might have had Pluto on your sun or moon or rising, or other important planets, but particularly on the big three, I suppose, would be where you're really going to feel it. Is that how you would?
Oh, absolutely.
You would see it as well?
Yeah. I have Capricorn moon. So it's been going backwards and forwards over my moon and changing things. And my moon is also part of a big aspect in my chart. So it's pretty much been lighting up half of my chart for the past 15 years. And that's why everything has changed pretty much. Is just coming going, no, Georgina, everything you've been doing up until then is just not right for you. You've got to go back on track to where you're meant to be. Do I wish I knew before then? Maybe not, because you gain certain things. Like, I think once you're on the right track, so to speak, or where you're meant to go after that, I'd say the key thing is don't be too hard on yourself. Like, oh, why didn't I do that earlier? Because remember, you've learned a lot of things in the first 40 years of your life that you can apply to if you go down a different track, especially career-wise.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I have done with my own business, taken something, marketing, and then added the astrology, upskilled in the astrology, and then, transferred those skills from marketing and marketing coaching, business coaching into, merging it in with astrology. So there may be something that and for you, like obviously having that science background and then, going into astrology means that you approach your astrology work with these skills of a scientist, which I think is really, really powerful as well. And so that's, whatever it is that your business is focused on, your when you have this transit, I suppose it can really highlight a new area that you want to go into, but how you can then like transform the skill that you already have into this new version. And
Yes,
I guess that
that's
brings
right.
us to the next thing that I wanted to chat to you about, which is, what do you think happens when we have Pluto impacting on a career part of our chart? You know, obviously the main career part of the chart is the 10th house, but it could be also aspecting the midheaven. It could be aspecting another of the work houses as well, the second or the sixth house. What do you think? What do you think that feels like, or the benefits, I guess, of having Pluto affecting your career or your business sector?
I would say I would look at the business like a person.
Yes.
Like you could look at it at a business chart and
Mm.
analyze it like a person, or go to an astrologer with it.
Yes.
And I would say, and even your own personal chart,
Yes.
okay, and see where Pluto lies. Like I'll have Pluto going into my 10th house, crossing my midheaven and going to my 10th house
Yes.
in a few years. And to see, I would say, look at what it's aspecting when it makes that
Mm.
transit. So if it's making
Mm.
any squares, I would say, or oppositions,
Mm.
expect the challenges. What you
Mm.
need to face, what you need to build a bridge over to
Mm.
go where Pluto wants you to go.
Yeah.
If you're making some really nice aspects like trines and sextiles, they're
Mm.
really good, but you don't want to get too complacent. Think,
Mm.
oh, I'm fine. This is going to be an easy Pluto transit. No, Pluto wants you to go somewhere, and you need
Yeah.
to, ride that wave.
Yes.
Otherwise it's like surfing. It's like, you got to go on that wave. Otherwise, he's going to bring a really big one and say, you're going to go with this one
Yeah.
and knock you off your board. It's like,
That's it.
come on, pay attention.
Yeah.
So you need to see what else is happening in your chart, what else it's aspecting, especially the personal planets, either in your
Mm.
chart or your business chart.
Yeah.
And it's good to see, if it might be it'll be changing houses, definitely, if it's going in the
Mm.
10th. Is it
Mm.
aspecting anything in the second and the sixth?
Yeah.
You might have Pluto going over your ascendant, descendant, or IC instead.
Mm.
You know, it might be going over
Yeah.
your IC and aspecting something in your 10th house. What
Yes.
do you have to balance there with your home work life is really going to
Yeah.
change that for you.
Yeah. So your IC is the bottom of your chart. It is the home sector, the home base, or the private life, what you don't really share with others, that you keep for yourself. So if
Yes.
you have a Pluto aspect there, you might be very internally focused, or having a very deep internal transformation, or a transformation in your home life, maybe some sort of revelation about your ancestry, or
Mm.
your,
Yeah.
you know, maybe you have a big kind of, I would say, because Pluto can bring these kind of revelatory moments, kind of be like, oh, now I see something that I didn't know before. All of a sudden something
Yes.
becomes exposed to us with Pluto as well.
Yeah, he'll bring it up. He'll definitely
Mm.
bring it up, and he will show it to the world, so to speak.
Mm.
Definitely show it to you. But
Mm.
if you're not in your truth, and
Mm.
if you don't listen, that's when it'll feel the hardest, I would
Yeah.
say. I mean, Saturn comes along. I like to think of like Saturn as a librarian, or, an examiner with a stern smile. I used to have a
Yeah.
librarian at school that never smiled. And when she did, this is
Yeah.
Saturn, it was scary, and
Yeah.
have with those boards and, writing down, going, now, what have you done? Why haven't you done that properly? You need to get
Yeah.
back on track. But Pluto will get the board and smack you across the head and go, no, this way.
Yes. Okay.
It
Right.
really puts you that's why he's so disorienting, I find.
Mm.
And we don't know
Yeah.
where we're going, what we're doing. But
Mm.
if you go with the flow and see
Mm.
where he's taking you, oh my gosh, it's amazing where you'll get
Yeah.
to. I mean, I can only say that because I'm on the other side of the transits. But
Yes.
beforehand, you're like, oh. And, people born in the 90s who might be
Mm.
listening to this, you'll experience it after your Neptune transit. You
Oh,
know, it
right. They'll have
flips
Neptune
around a bit.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well,
that'll
that'll
be
be
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
So s- tell us about Pluto and power and wealth. Like you touched on it right at the beginning, because
Mm.
yes, like Pluto, as you said, Pluto is the god of the underworld, but it also can represent great wealth, great power.
Yes.
So whenever we see Pluto in the chart, it can also represent where we might have issues with power, or where we might, need to empower ourselves in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what is it that I guess, where would we be if we're having a Pluto activation in our business, like not within ourselves in our own chart, but in a business part of our chart, or in a career part of our chart?
Yeah.
What can we expect in terms of our power, our sense of personal power, but also our power dynamics in general? What would you say is happening there?
I would say, you know, Pluto, I mean, I'm more of a, modern astrologer, so I would
Mm,
associate Pluto with the eighth house, which is
right.
all about your other people,
Mm,
other people's money,
mm-hmm.
your power in relationships, what you've
Yes.
given away. So
Mm,
when you have a Pluto transit, you need to see where have you given your power away. Because
mm,
if let's say you're in a job that
mm,
you're not paid your worth, you hate it, but you stay there because
mm.
it pays the bills. But when you go through
Yes.
a Pluto transit, it's like, but you've given them your power. The
Mm,
paycheck is the power they have over you. And you'll be
yeah.
like, you might have this idea for a fantastic business that you want to start, but you're too
Mm,
scared to start it. I would say don't leave your day job, but actually
mm,
get out there, start that business, and and when it builds up, of course, leave your day job,
mm,
but get your power back,
mm,
and you can see it in relationships. I had a client with Pluto transiting their Venus,
mm.
and it was in the second house, and it was opposite Pallas Athena in the eighth house.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to them, the first thing I said to them, like they called me like, I want a reading yesterday. I'm like, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you need a couple of days to prepare. So when I
Yes.
met them, they were just sitting there like really still, like if I move, they'll know everything about me. I'm not going to give anything
Yeah.
away. But the charts were speaking for themselves. And the first
Mm,
thing that came out of my mouth, sometimes I'm like, what did I just say?
yeah.
I said, why have you given your power away? And she just
Mm,
broke down in tears. And I just went, great, I broke a
yeah.
client.
Yeah.
That's it, I'm done. But she was like, I was like giving her the tissues, and she said, I just filed for a divorce because
Right.
I gave my power away. I just realized it. And they were a
Mm,
very independent sign as well.
mm,
And you're like, how
mm.
did that come about? But it wasn't for me to go into that. But,
Yeah.
we explored that a little bit more. So Pluto was showing this client, you've
Mm,
given away all of your power in your partnership. It's time to
mm.
claim that back and be a goddess, with that
Yeah.
opposition. And I'm
Yeah.
sure even though, they did or will have a difficult couple of years ahead, they've also
Mm.
have Chiron return and all these things
Oh, yeah.
happening in their chart. I reassure them, you will get through this. It will end
Mm.
one day. And that's the other thing to remember. Once you get your power back and Pluto
Yeah.
sees you've got your power back, he'll back off. He will.
Yeah.
It'll probably be when it's separating, but
Mm.
Pluto goes
Yeah.
retrograde, and he will always
Yeah.
come back for a few returns to make sure
Yeah.
you claimed your
You've
power back.
Yeah, you've
Yeah.
you've done the thing. It's like Saturn, right? We don't get one
Yeah.
pass of Saturn. Well, some people do, but most of the time we get three passes of Saturn, because it goes retrograde, comes back and checks, and we have that integration time, or that
Yes.
that double checking time. Make sure you've done the thing you were supposed to do.
That's right. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll hit you over the head again. Yes. So that's also what Pluto does. And it was interesting what you said about Pluto retrograde. Before we started recording, what you've noticed about Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, like there
Yeah.
seems to be like this bit of a kind of contraction in business when Pluto goes retrograde. Is that
Yes.
what you've noticed? Like,
Yeah, especially in my business.
mm,
Because I was analyzing my chart the other day. And as I
mm,
was saying, I did all the electional. I was like, yep, everything's over the
yeah,
horizon. I've got the ascendant that I want. But I didn't look where Pluto was. Mind
yeah.
you, when you do electional astrology, you don't look at the outer planets
You don't
so
normally look at the outer
much.
planets.
No.
Yeah. Mm,
And my business Pluto is retrograde in Capricorn in the seventh house. So
mm,
every time in the past couple of years when Pluto has gone Capricorn over that degree, my
mm,
business has been very slow.
yeah.
And as we're leaving Pluto in
Mm,
Capricorn now, for
mm,
me, I was like, okay, it's a time to revise
mm,
what's been going on, how
mm.
I want to go ahead, and actually use this time in a constructive way rather than just
Yes.
sit back and go, oh, why has everyone forgotten me?
Yeah.
I need to pay the bills. It's like find other ways, find something else, to help for your business to grow. I mean, being in the
Mm,
seventh house for me, it's like, working with other people. It's about
yeah.
others, partnerships. So we need
Mm,
to see, like that, what we've learned and
mm,
that introspection and seeing how we're going to go
mm,
forward. So Pluto will, go into Aquarius. I think it's direct now,
mm.
but still in Capricorn. So things are slowly picking up a
Right
little
at
bit.
right at the end of Capricorn. So we've got
Yeah.
those couple of degrees for it to inch across again
Yes.
into Aquarius.
And then
Yeah.
he'll go into Aquarius in January. Yay!
Yeah. Well, I'm not so excited about it, but hey, that's all right. Um, but the thing about Pluto and Aquarius is that it's going to be there for a long time. So we're going to have
Yeah.
20 years of Pluto hanging out in Aquarius. So if you do have any planets, points in Aquarius, you are going to feel this more than other people.
That's right.
Or if you have any major planets or points in the fixed sign, so that would be Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius. That's going to be that square aspect that you're going to get with
Yes.
this with this transit. So like me, I have Pluto in Scorpio. I'm going to get that square from Pluto in Aquarius, and then like you, it's going to hit my midheaven in Aquarius as well. So
Wow.
there's going to be a lot of Pluto happening. But I guess what we can take away from this chat is that Pluto transits are transformational, like by nature, they're transformational.
Yeah.
It's not just a little kind of blink and you miss it kind of transit, right?
Yeah.
It's going to require a bit of depth, a bit of intensity, a bit of composting, a
Oh
bit
yeah.
of a bit of throwing things out. Like, I was when we have had a few little Pluto activations lately, as in the sky in general. We've had a few
Yes.
Pluto activations, and Pluto can be great for like decluttering, for like clearing things out. What else do you see, we can use that Pluto energy practically for?
I like to think of it like, the butterfly becoming, sorry, other way around. The caterpillar
Caterpillar.
becoming the butterfly. Yeah.
Yes.
And that
Mm,
Pluto time is being in that cocoon,
mm,
going in there.
yeah.
But also seeing, you might have had a dream early in
Mm,
life, if you're going through these midlife transits, and you might have wanted to try the stage or say writing or something, but you let it go because of life, got to pay the
mm,
bills. It is also a time where Pluto will come in and go, why don't you give this a go? You
mm,
might try it and fail miserably, okay,
mm,
but you gave it a go. That's a really good thing. And he's
yeah.
made you see that, yep, you are a crap writer, but you're a
Mm,
really good screenwriter, or
yeah.
something else. It really, sorts through the chaff, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you move things out that just do not serve you anymore. The scary
Mm,
thing with that is it does include people.
yes.
Okay. So people will leave your life. Not
Yeah.
necessarily by death or anything like that,
Mm, mm,
like I had, but the
mm,
people that have taught you what they're meant to teach you, and you've taught them what you're meant to teach them, they will go. You just
Mm.
grow apart,
Yeah.
in the nicest way. And you will see it really just
Yeah.
does change everything, Pluto.
Yeah. And I think I had a Pluto square moon transit square my moon a few years ago.
Yeah.
So Pluto would have been, the early 20s of Capricorn, right? That was
Right.
my Pluto square moon moment. So I would have probably been in my mid 30s or early 30s even.
Yeah.
And um and yeah, definitely a lot of people sort of disappeared from my life. A lot of,
Wow.
and I don't mean like that they died. They didn't. It was just like all of a sudden there were a lot of people that were no longer part of my life anymore. Or,
Yeah.
it was like things just changed and those relationships stopped. Yeah, just stopped. And it wasn't like I did anything specific to stop them.
That's
It
right.
was just like they fell away. And I think that that's a really important thing to understand about Pluto is that it's not that you actually, it's like an eclipse energy, isn't it? It's like you don't actually
Yeah.
have to participate in even in the letting go. The letting go is happening.
It's going to happen no matter what. Yeah.
The releasing is happening.
Yes.
If you can participate in it, I think maybe you might find like it's a little bit more productive for you.
Mm.
Like if there are ways you can release things from your life, like notice, oh yes, like habits, for instance. If like, would you think having Pluto and you going through your sixth house, maybe you're releasing some really toxic habits that you
Oh
had
gosh, yes.
before can be really helpful to
Yes.
have that kind of a transit. Like it's not always releasing relationships. It could be releasing all sorts of things
Could be something
from,
that you're eating, even that you
yeah,
think is innocuous but is causing such inflammation in your body or an allergic
yes,
reaction that you really need to get rid of. And,
yeah,
you might have some health issues,
mm,
with the sixth house, sorry, that will come up that
mm,
really need an attention, you
mm,
know?
yeah,
Otherwise, as you go forward, it is not conducive to you going forward. You can't live with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can't move forward effectively while you're still holding on to that thing. So Pluto's going to come and say, okay, time to release that.
Yeah.
So, and that's really important, I think, with the sixth house being a work house as well. It could be if you're having Pluto in your house of work and service, you might notice, there's some bad work habits that need to go, some bad health habits that need to go, some ways of working that need to go, and you need
Yeah.
to like rethink, maybe even your workplace can be like that sixth house energy too. Um, and the same goes for, I guess, your 10th house. So as
Mm.
Pluto comes through your 10th house, this is for you and me to consider, isn't it? What is
Yeah.
it about our career, our public reputation sector that we need to let go of now
Yes.
as this kind of comes in here? What are we holding on to that maybe we don't need anymore as part of our, public reputation, as part of our career? Is that I guess something that we can that you'll be thinking about as you have this transit?
Oh, definitely. But I'm also like, it's going to last 20 years.
It's gonna last 20 years. Yeah,
That's something I have 20 years to think about.
that's right. No rush. No
Take our
rush. And
time.
again, it'll happen and then you'll look back and go, oh right, that's why that happened. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like now
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
makes sense. Of course I had to let go of that thing or that you know that client or that person or that habit or whatever it is.
Mm.
It will all make sense later,
It
right?
does. It makes sense afterwards. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it.
But when you're going through
But
it, you're in the dark,
yeah,
unfortunately.
literally that's
Yeah.
the Pluto thing. We're in the dark, we're in the underworld going through it. So it can be challenging, but it also can be really empowering, right? Because as you say,
Mm.
like, you notice the places where you have given away your power.
Yes,
Where you have, or lost your power, and you're able to regain that within yourself.
absolutely. And it might be something that you've known for a long time, but
Mm,
don't know how to get your power back. And it's
mm,
like the universe saying, like, yeah, like an eclipse going, no, this isn't going to last for you. You
yeah.
cannot live like this any longer.
Mm,
And if you don't listen, things will happen, bringing
yeah.
all that energy inward. And you're like, oh, okay, this happened. And then you start going on that internal journey.
Mm,
You got to go. Like when I went through my transit, it was like two sharp peaks, two mountains that were like made of black onyx. So there was no way you could climb out of it. And in the
yeah.
valley, there's quicksand. And I was like, to go right up to here.
Yeah.
I don't mean to scare everyone, but that's what it felt
That's an
like to me.
interesting visual. Yes.
I'm like, I
Yeah.
am I'm drowning here because
Yeah.
I was trying to hold on to the things that
Mm,
were not right for me anymore. And when I let go,
mm.
the drowning, I started to float. And I was like, well, I can either go to the
Right.
shore, I can either go to the mountain that I came from, or go forward, and it
Yeah.
didn't matter where I went, but
Mm,
I made it to those, and those slippery mountains had, ledges on them, and I was
mm.
able to climb myself out of it. So
Yeah.
don't fight it, I
You've
would
got to
say.
surrender to the Pluto
Yeah.
transit.
Yeah. Let him take you there.
Mm. Wow.
Might be a party.
Yeah.
Watch Lucifer. I'll take you to his penthouse.
There you go. Interesting that we're having this chat just after Halloween too, isn't it? There
It's
you
true.
go.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
There
you
you
probably
go.
think it's, sorry, you probably think
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's the devil. Take that out of
Mm.
it. Take that out of
Yeah.
it. He's the spiritual giver. Yeah,
Okay.
I'd have to say.
I love that. The bringer of spiritual gifts and
Yes,
understanding and wisdom.
absolutely.
Yes. I love that. All right. This has been such a fun chat. I am so glad that I had you on the show. Thank you so much for
Oh,
being
thank you for
here.
having me. I've loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Awesome.